Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we're going to be exploring two incredibly powerful features of a Code Orchestra that we think are going to change the developer experience tremendously. The first one is our on-demand compilation system. Our compiler essentially watches out for your C# code, and anytime you modify a C# file, it automatically compiles in the background. However, it goes one step further and only recompiles the changes that you've made. This gets us almost instant recompilation inside of Unreal Engine that allows you to iterate over your game logic incredibly quickly. The second feature we're going to be exploring is NuGet packages. There are tens of thousands of NuGet packages available. You can use those inside of your game or application based on Unreal Engine to quickly add incredible features. Today we're going to be exploring how we can expose a web server inside of our game in a matter of minutes using NuGet packages and Code Orchestra. So let's begin. If we dive right in, we'll notice that we have our crush depth solution here. This is where we house most of our C# game logic for our game. We have Code Orchestra running, and we have the background compiler running. If we go ahead and we play inside of our editor, we'll notice that we have a character. Currently, this is an MMO, so it connects to a backend server, but we won't go into those details. We'll just use our character to walk up to our ship wheel. We are on a floating merchant ship, and we can interact with the ship using the left and right mouse buttons. We could see that as we turn the wheel, we have the indicator that also follows. Let's say we wanted to change the turn rate of this particular interaction. Well, all we have to do is to pause the editor experience, and we can jump into our ship wheel system. Inside of our game, we use Presto ECS. So this is an ECS-based architecture. So we have a system which looks for entities that have a ship wheel component and are also networked. Whenever the user looks at the wheel and they interact with the left or right mouse button, we simply change the rotation value of the wheel. Let's say we wanted to slow down the rotation speed significantly, 5 times slower than it currently is. All I have to do is to save the file, and we could see the entire build recompiled. Now, if we go back to the editor and we replay, we could see that our changes were almost immediately absorbed by the Unreal Engine. Once again, let's say we want to speed it up. We go here, we modify the value, we click save, 115 milliseconds, we're now able to replay the experience. This allows us to almost immediately iterate over our game logic inside of Unreal Engine. Next, let's explore a more advanced use case. Let's create a new component which does not yet exist that modifies its parent's rotation. This architectural style is very similar to the mono behavior style over in the Unity game engine. We're going to create a brand new component and we'll call it force rotation. All right, so we've created a brand new file. We've called it force rotation and we inherit from behavior. Behavior is a helper class that we provide to help those coming from the Unity game engine have a very familiar workflow. We have prephysics tick, and here we can see that we're simply adding to the roll of the rotator by 360 degrees per second. We can see that our compilation took about 9 seconds because this was a brand new file that we added, and we had to do some C++ recompilation. Let's jump into the EOT of the ship, and let's add our rotator to a random component. Let's choose this handle over here. We're going to add force rotation, compile, and save. Now when we click play, we should see that component rotating at 360 degrees a second. Pretty straightforward. Let's say we wanted to change this logic, and we wanted to rotate on all 3 axes. We go in C#, we save, and 139 milliseconds later, we're ready to test our game logic changes. Now we are rotating on all 3 axes. Let's try again on 2 axes instead, so it's a little bit more visible. Let's choose the pitch and roll. Once again, we save. A little over 100 milliseconds later, we are now ready to once again test our game logic. This allows for incredibly quick iteration times. Let's explore how we can use existing .NET libraries to extend our Unreal Engine application or game. In this case, we're going to use NuGet. With tens of thousands of packages available, it is incredibly easy to bring in a lot of power to whatever we're bringing, whether it's interacting with databases via SQLite or parsing YAML with parsers. The use cases are incredibly broad. Let's look at, in this case, bringing in a lightweight web server and having our game host it. If we look at Watson Web Server and an MIT licensed package, we can see that it takes just a few lines of code to get up and running with this package. So let's add it to our application via the standard NuGet package workflow. We'll open up the NuGet package manager, we'll search for Watson, and we'll install it into our project. Now I'm going to set up the actual web server. I'm going to create the default bindings, which set up our web server on port 9000. All right. So with a few lines of code, I've now created a server that is exposed on port 9000. We shut the server down on shutdown, and the server will intercept the calls and print hello from default route. Let's try it out by starting our game. And now we can simply navigate to localhost port 9000. Hello from default route. Let's tie this in together with our background compiler to see just how powerful the workflow can be. We're going to stop our editor, and we can modify the string here to print the current date time. Once again, it takes just a few milliseconds after saving, 107 milliseconds, for my change to take effect. I can now once again play the game, navigate to the server, and there we are. We're now printing the time. Just like that, we've extended our game with a built-in web server, which can have a lot of use cases for games that locally want to expose, let's say, player stats, an API, or other types of integrations. Thank you for joining me today and exploring these two use cases. We look forward to sharing more videos with you soon.